Stop. We're going to breathe together, okay? Inhale. Hold it for 4. Exhale out of your mouth for 8. And ideally, you want to do this 3 to 4 times. And now I'll tell you about why I made you randomly just stop and breathe. When you're dealing with a lot of stress and you're panicking, that doesn't just show up mentally, that also shows up somatically in your body, right? Like, you don't just have a stressful thought of, oh my God, I have this assignment that's due in 10 minutes. It's, you have that thought going through your head and your hands are getting sweaty, your brain is getting kind of foggy, you're having trouble kind of putting down the next word or solving the problem because you're stressed. And there's all of these downstream effects because you are stressed out. And so breathing doesn't solve the problem, but it's the first step in actually being able to do so, right? So you need to breathe. And this is the first point that I have for the video. Sorry about the lighting and all the craziness. I am not used to making videos, so you guys are just gonna have to adjust for a little bit, but I will figure out how to improve in the future. Okay, so the first thing is you need to breathe, get your nervous system out of fight or flight, because you're gonna be able to make better decisions when you're stressed if you calm down the body, right? Okay, the next thing that you need to do when you're trying to manage your stress, because it's really difficult. Sorry, there's like a child like screeching out into the distance. Okay, I think they're done screeching out into the distance. Also, I got like a random side eye from somebody walking by, but you know what? That's valid because I'm just sitting here in a car making a video. Anyway, yeah, so you need to be able to breathe and calm down your body. All right. The next thing, when you're dealing with any kind of stress, you need to remind yourself that you're not the body and you're not even the mind. You're not the body and you're not even the mind. Why do I say this? Well, first of all, let's kind of logically look at the situation. If you were just your body and your mind, then if I killed you and everything else stayed intact, your brain didn't have any damage, your body didn't have any damage, and I put you back together, you should be able to come back to life. But you wouldn't, right? Exactly, because you're not just the body and you're not just the mind. There's a part of you that is intangible or energetic, and your essence is not your body or the mind. It's just you. Or I like to think of it as your soul. You can think of it as your energy. You don't have to be religious or spiritual, but regardless of what it is, you are not your mind or your body. Your mind and your body are tools that you use in order to solve problems and in order to navigate life. But that is not fundamentally who you are. And it's really important to actually ground yourself and tell you that when you are freaking out and spiraling with stress, because when you realize that you are not the body and you are not the mind, you allow yourself to take control over yourself and use these as tools instead of letting these tools run you. I think Dr. K had a really good point when he was talking about this in one of these videos, and he was saying, you know, your tongue exists to serve you, not the other way around. You don't exist to serve your tongue. You don't exist to serve your sense of touch. Your touch exists to serve you. And so that is the next thing that you need to do in order to kind of get control over your stress. So let's really quickly just kind of pivot a little bit into the 3 big causes of stress. Now, this is like more in the meta sense. The first thing is doing the thing. A lot of people get stressed about doing the thing. I actually was very stressed about posting and uploading this YouTube video because I have never made a YouTube video. I don't know anything about editing or lighting or content creation or anything about anything. And so I was fully and completely stressed out about doing the thing. But guess what? Now that I'm sitting in front of this camera doing the thing, my stress is significantly lower than when I was anticipating doing the thing. The second cause of stress in the broad sense is you did the thing and now you're waiting on results, and typically it's because it's something meaningful to you. So like, let's say you interviewed for a job and now you're waiting to see whether you got the job. You texted the guy or girl and now you're waiting for them to respond to you and, let you know whether they do like you or not. And so when you did the thing and you're waiting on results, you're in this period where things are out of your control. And so now you're figuring out how to manage the stress that comes with that. The third broad category of causes of stress is you did the thing, you got the results, and the results that you got were not positive. So let's say you went into a feedback session with your employer, like a quarterly review, and your results were not fantastic, or you did something and it upset your friend when you wanted to make them happy. There's all sorts of things, right? But basically you did something, you got the result, and the result wasn't positive. And so now you're going into an entire catastrophic spiral about what's going to happen. So I'll do a deeper dive on the causes of stress and kind of going more into the nitty-gritty of how to deal with that if you guys would like. But I thought just providing some kind of structure and categorization to, this giant overarching problem of stress would be helpful. Okay, but so far in terms of stress management techniques, we've covered breathing, right? That's the prerequisite to being able to actually sit down and focus on how you're going to solve the problem. The next thing that we covered is that you're not the body and you're not even the mind. Getting yourself out of the trap of your body and mind so that you can focus on getting these tools to work for you instead of letting them run your life. Now, let's get to point number 3. Logic is the trap. And this is why I told you, like not even 2 seconds ago, to separate yourself from your body and your mind. Now, why is logic the trap? Now, when you're sitting and debating about doing the thing or what the results are going to be after you did the thing, or figuring out how you're going to do damage control or whatever because you did the thing and the feedback wasn't great, what you are doing is basically running a mental sweatshop in your brain where you are trying to figure out any and every possible consequence or possible scenario that follows after what just happened, right? But this is a trap. Why is it a trap? Because you're in what if land. None of this stuff has actually happened. This is all what if land. And even if you overthought yourself to oblivion and you figured out every single possible alternative reality of what could actually happen, right? Like you just decided to go in Doctor Strange, you still don't know what the probability of any of those given events are, right? So let's say I have constructed 20 different scenarios in my head of what could possibly happen after I did the thing or if I did the thing. Well, I can't actually figure out what the probability is of each individual scenario because all of this happened in what if land. None of this is actually manifested yet. The only way I'm going to actually figure out which scenario happens and therefore which scenario I actually need to deal with is if I actually do something and get out of what if land and get into what is land. So we don't have any actual data. Now, here's why that's also really important of making sure that you get out of what if land and into what is land. Because your brain sucks at creating models of what's going to happen. I'm going to repeat that. Your brain sucks at creating models of what's going to happen. Think about it. If your brain was really good at modeling what would happen, then you should have a really good ability to predict the future. But we can't, right? For example, even if you have like 95% accurate data of what your life looks like on any given day, do you know with certainty what you're going to eat tomorrow? Do you know at what time you're going to go and take a shower? What time you're going to use the bathroom? What time you're going to get a coffee? What time you're going to call your friend? No. And these are things that happen probably in your day, that happen almost every single day, that your brain should be pretty good at modeling. But yet, I know that if you ask yourself right now, you can't give me a good answer on when these things are going to happen, or what things are going to happen on any given day. Right? So our brains cannot accurately, or with honestly even adequately, provide a good model of what's going to happen. But the second thing that your brain does, which is a little bit insidious, is your brain assumes linear trends, right? And that's not how life works. Your brain assumes linear trends, and your brain takes on the trajectory of whatever it is, the last thing that happened, or the thing that you're trying to do. So for example, I know it doesn't necessarily come off that way in this video, but I am terrified of social media. I'm terrified of social media. I'm really, really, really scared of putting myself out there on the internet. And I'm actually, if you genuinely asked me, I kind of hope that people don't find this video. Because there's just like, you know, I look crazy. I'm literally having lighting via my iPad. I'm squished in the car, and there are people walking by that could see me just being really awkward, right? So there's a lot that I should kind of be worried about. But then my brain could go with this situation right now and catastrophize. What if people see me? What if people think I'm weird? What if a manager that I want to get hired by in the future comes across this video and thinks, oh my God, this girl is absolutely insane? There are all sorts of things that could happen, right? But taking the feeling of fear that I have and then modeling a linear trend based off of that and trying to predict the events in the future is a horrible way to try and actually figure out what situation I need to deal with and how I need to manage my stress. I've just created a way to keep looping stress and continue to be stressed out about an infinite number of things. And this is why we're coming back to the point of logic is a trap, because every single fear that your brain creates is logical. It's logical, right? And so you believe, okay, if I'm feeling this fear, if I'm feeling this uncertainty, and I can walk through my mind of how we get from A to B, then it must be true, and things will blow up or go wrong, or this will not work out in my favor, etc., etc., etc. But again, the model is wrong, and you're not mitigating your risk or managing your risk the way you think you are. You are avoiding your risk and avoiding the pain because you are staying in what if land, and you're not going into what is land. So if you actually want to deal with your stress, what you need, and it's going to sound very counterintuitive, is data. You need to go out there and you need to do something, and you need to get the data. Okay? And again, we talked about how your brain sucks at modeling. And an important tip that I like to give myself whenever I go through a spiral is this quote, and forgive me because the author's name who created this quote is lost on me, but faith and fear, I'm going to repeat that one more time. Faith and fear both demand that you believe in something that you cannot see. Right? These are both narratives. If it's a positive narrative or a negative narrative, at the end of the day, these two things are just narratives. So faith and fear both require you to believe in something you cannot see. So why choose to believe in the thing that's preventing you from moving forward? No. Believe in the thing that will allow you to move forward, not the thing that prevents you from moving forward, because even though you think that by doing that, you are preventing yourself from dealing with harm, it's actually the opposite. Because if you sit there and you do nothing and you stay in this form of paralysis and you spike your body with cortisol and stress yourself out and have not only all of these harmful negative effects, but these harmful somatic effects in your body, you're actively harming yourself in the pursuit of preventing harm. Because the consequences of doing nothing are not nothing happens. The consequences of doing nothing are that negative things happen in the future. So you're not mitigating risk by doing these things that are actually preventing you from taking action. Now, let's kind of move on to some practical tips. And I'll give 3 practical tips and then I'll end off this video. But the first practical tip I can give with dealing with stress is create redundancy in your plans. You want to prevent what we call single point failure. If you're planning something and you're trying to do something, make sure that there are systems that are running in parallel so that if one thing goes wrong, the entire system doesn't crash, right? This is, for example, why a lot of people try to pursue parallel income, or not parallel income, passive income. Why do people pursue passive income? Well, because it prevents single point failure. If you lose your job or one of your streams of income blow up, you are not going to end up destitute or homeless or in a situation where you have to take on a lot of financial risk because you have redundancy. The second tip that I can give you is to actually take calculated risks when you're dealing with stress, right? Because again, we talked about this a minute ago or so, that doing nothing or the cost of doing nothing is not nothing, it's actually negative. So you want to try to take calculated risk, get some amount of data, and then act on it. Do not stay in what if land. And the third thing that I would say is focusing on presence and emotional detachment. Now, I can yap about this in length because presence and emotional detachment are skills that take time to master in and of themselves. But to put across very quickly, when you're focusing on the thing that you're doing, if you pay attention to the thing that you're doing, you're going to be very effective at doing the thing. And you're also going to make sure that you don't put yourself in another catastrophic spiral. And emotional detachment is really important because coming back to the idea of you are not the body, you are not even the mind, it's really important to emotionally detach yourself so that you can actually execute actions from a place of rationality rather than a place of emotional panic, right? And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to yap about today really quickly. And if somebody random on the internet finds this video, I forgot to do this all at the beginning, but hi, my name is Dyuthi. I go by DC, just like the city. So DC, from DC, short and sweet, easy to remember. And honestly, I am making this video for my friends and honestly anybody else by extension that finds it useful. But what I basically realized is that I am constantly having a lot of people that come to me for advice. And the kind of advice that people ask from me tends to fall in very specific categories and kinds of issues and kinds of topics. So this is the first video that I'm making in a series of videos, which is basically advice for what I would tell my friends. Because I tend to repeat myself a lot on all the same kinds of topics. So you know who you are. If you have had me give this kind of advice to you in the past. So yeah, in the future, all you have to do is look at this video whenever you feel stressed. And yeah, I'll be making more of these kinds of videos in the future. I hope it helped. And yeah, I mean, if there's any other kinds of topics that you guys would find very helpful, please comment it down below. Like the video if you found it useful, subscribe if you found this video useful. I really want to make content that people can find interesting on topics that people need help with. And yeah, okay. There is somebody else that is staring at me right now. Cool. All right, I have reached my awkwardness limit. I'm logging off, but yeah, okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Bye.